All right, so I guess we should move on to a field in England.
Let's go to a field in England or
Let's go to a
not,
field
because
in
it
England.
seems like a terrible talk about a one location event movie.
Oh gosh.
Which we were just talking about the of the Dead films, which are one location event films for the first three.
Yes.
And here we are in a very different one location event film.
So I challenge you, Sarah, to make sense of what the fuck happens in this movie. Spoilers. We're spoiling whatever the fuck did happen in this movie,
A
which I
Field
don't
in
know.
England takes place during the very loved and oft-film time period of the British Civil War. I mean, you just can't walk a few feet without tripping over another one of those films. And
This is mid 17th century.
Right. There's our mother is interested in this time period, and I wish I could really talk about it a little better, but I think there's like the Calvinist and
But we can't recommend this movie to mom.
No, she would not like this movie. There's
No.
Cromwell, one of the Cromwells, because there's another Cromwell earlier, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there's different factions, let's just say, because that's what we're interested in. And They run into each other on a field in England and have a trippy time together, possibly because it's the past and everybody was hungry and dirty and weird all the time, possibly because they ate some mushrooms that might be causing them to hallucinate a lot of what's happening. There's four men and there's weird power struggles between them, and then eventually the movie ends.
Yeah. And there's also those four men eventually meet a fifth man who's like an alchemist or something. That's what I think the synopsis said. Somewhere.
Right, I forgot about that. It's been a little longer since I watched it, but yeah, like the strong implication is that the mushrooms causes a lot of hallucinations and weirdness to happen. There's a lot of mysterious. I mean, I was thinking about this before we talked. I kind of took over on this again, but
that's fine.
As we've even said within the last 15 minutes, I do not care for mainstream films.
Right.
But kind of the idea behind those films is often that you can kind of do the same. People want to watch the same thing. They want to like see it again and again. People get addicted to certain kind of stories and so on.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a world that exists where like 10 A Field in England's come out and like I personally don't want to see this movie over and over again. Like I think about films that like, this makes me think of November, which is that weird Estonian film. This makes me think of The Lighthouse. Now these are all black and white films too. I don't know if that's why I'm associating, but they're all kind of weird. But it's just like, if a Lighthouse came out every week, if A Field in England came out every week, I don't think I could do it. I don't think
Probably not, no.
Watch this kind of film. You just need a few of them.
I could not, for the life of you. Yeah, go ahead, keep going.
But it just, the other thing is, I was joking that this is just such a often filmed time period, but there is something about the certain, I always want to say the further back you go in time, but I think there are older time period, like we see ancient Rome more often in film, biblical stuff, we see that kind of stuff. You see World War II over and over again. You see World War I over and over again. You see the Civil War sometimes, the American Civil War. You see, like there's certain, the American West, there's certain time periods in the past you like to see. We do not see a lot of like 1600s, medieval stuff. You see like, usually it's about a monarch or it's a Shakespeare play. I guess that's Renaissance.
A lot of fantasy feels like it might harken from that era, but
like 1500s, that kind of stuff. But you just don't see certain and it, this makes me think of the Draftsman's Contract, which is I think still 100 or 200 years later. But there's something just weird and creepy about, or Yorgos Lanthimos is The Favorite. I can't remember what time period that is. Amadeus, even like The Favorite and Amadeus are less creepy. They're brighter. Their color, films.
Well, Field in England is, I guess, a horror film. It's like it's a psychological film.
Yeah, but there's always something inherently creepy and weird, even in Amadeus, I would say. There's something about going to that era of the past that just feels a little weird. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Those are all the things I'm thinking about when it comes to. I don't have a thesis here. I'm just talking.
So here's the thing. So I have a thing to say. I think so. Like in the film, we've gone from like we've like crossed a hedge or something into this field,
Right.
which makes it sort of a time out of place,
right,
or a place out of time. There we go.
mm-hmm.
And then there's a dead man who like is not dead, but that's not so weird because he's not like bleeding or anything. Maybe he's just there. He's come there, and there's some other guy who shows up and another, right? And so place out of time, and occasionally they like strike poses like they're in a painting for no reason that I can figure out. And then we have a song somewhere through Baloo, which is kind of a neat song. And like then there's a scene where like our guy is being tortured in being alchemy having done on him by the other guy, and everybody outside is like praying and trying not to think about these horrendous screams. And so this man who's been alchemied is like then running around like with like this or something, like he's doing some thing.
Well, he looks uncomfortable. His face is very distorted.
Right. And then there's some discussion of God and like these things, and it's like all this stuff that might mean something, like there's something trying to be said by this movie, and like somebody gets shot and there's a skeleton, and then like the guy like when he shoots the skeleton he gets blown back a bit, and then there's this wind that comes from nowhere, and like and then our man is like wearing a cape in a specific way, and he crosses the hedge at the end of the movie, and now it's him and his two friends he made standing on the other side of the hedge, and it's like this all it's as if this were to mean something. And I have no clue. I am bewildered. I'm enjoying plenty of this movie. And I don't need to know everything. Sometimes the joy in watching something is not understanding what it means. I have no words to express the amount of like there are movies I've seen that are just nonsensical, but this isn't nonsensical. Like nonsensical is like a poorly made bad movie like Plan 9 from Outer Space, where like
right.
your film, your plane set is some cardboard. Like that's just nonsensical. Like who knows what any of it means? It doesn't mean anything. Like this is like I'm like pleading with the film, like you've got to mean something, right? You mean something. I want you to mean something. Please mean something.
Well, how do you compare that though to something like The Lighthouse or November?
It's funny because those feel like they aren't like trying to say as much necessarily. Like The Lighthouse is like a certain kind of horror. Like it's more directly horror to me. Like I can't tell you what everything means necessarily, but I'm pretty sure it's like a horror of the unknown, and it's like a specific like this isolation. So like I get more from it of like it's two men isolated together. There's something about them being isolated together. And then November is like trying to rationalize things that you don't understand. Mm-hmm. It's like what November is, and because it's a certain kind of folklore, and that's at least my interpretation of it. Whereas A Field in England is just like.
But see, that's more what I see because.
And this isn't a bad thing necessarily. This is just my experience with the film.
And maybe this is more what I was trying to say when I was saying like there's a creepiness to certain eras of history.
Yeah.
Is the past was horrible. Like it was just awful. Like
yeah.
And there's all kind and I hesitate to put much weight into some of these theories, but there's theories that the Salem witch trials had to do with like hallucinogenics that were mold and the stuff. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I stuff like that is a little pat to me in its explanation, but you were just like day-to-day living could be really miserable in the past in a way that it is less so now for larger groups of people. Certainly it's really hard for some people, but there wasn't global infrastructure. There was only so much local infrastructure. And so, you could just get stuck in a field and eat mushrooms and have this bizarre experience and be trying to make sense of it. And so I guess that's kind of
interesting.
What I saw.
I could buy that.
In that,
Well, there's also like this big black spot, and it's like there's like there's like clouds in it or something, and I don't know what that means. And it's like that. It's very Lovecraftian to me in a way where it's like it's just all this unknown. You know, and they pull this somehow they pull this man into the field with some rope. I have no clue what happened there, like why that's like how it is that works. And like we get some like images and people are folded over like that in the intro for Dark, and it's like, what does that mean? And
it's probably mushrooms.
It's probably mushrooms. There's this meme of that character from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, played by what's his name, Charlie Day or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
And like he's got this board and there's all these images on it and he's trying to connect everything, and he's like, it's a great meme. I don't know memes or any of this stuff. It's a great clip. It's like that's how I feel right now. It's like that's where I am in my head.
And it also has those power things where the person who seems to be most in control of the situation or have the most power over the other people, I would say, seems to change within the movie a few times, as I recall, because there's the guy who has this position of power, but he only has it because of who he serves, but then he's not with that guy right now. And there's a lot of kind of like, and who has affection for one another. And then it's genuinely sad when that one guy dies, only he seems to come back. I
Right. I don't know. It is genuinely sad, and then it isn't, but it is. But who knows? He's died 3 times. I don't know.
So I don't want everybody to start making movies like this all the time. But the last thing I was going to say about it was that it is also really clever low budget filmmaking, because you've got like six people, 4 people, however many people end up, I forget, and a field, and that is it. And you have the costumes and the very minimal sets they have, which is some right
tense.
And then, but that again is also more like something like The Lighthouse, where it's like those are, I think, higher budget actors, but
and sets too, but the costuming is pretty good in the field in England. I haven't talked at all about the technical aspects of it yet, but I will.
It also makes me think of like Beyond the Black Rainbow, which was the same guy that did Mandy.
Right, I haven't seen that yet.
But you saw Mandy, right?
Yeah.
I fell asleep for Mandy. I need to try it again. But it's just like weirdness. You're never gonna. It's never gonna be mainstream. Just endless weirdness will never be mainstream.
This movie is like, it doesn't feel like weirdness for weird's sake, which is like Mandy. It doesn't feel like nonsense, like a bad movie. It feels like it has meaning that I can't understand, but it's not like, I don't know.
It's like a fun, weird puzzle of a film. Like you can put it together how you want. Maybe it isn't the mushrooms. Maybe it's all really happening. And then what does that mean? Like, so I like those kind of films, but even I can only take so many of them. So in that case, I get why we're never going to have big blockbuster movies like A Field in England.
I enjoyed it a fair bit, despite my sort of, statements I've made here. I want to talk for a second about the technical aspects of it, because it's filmed, I think, in digital, but it's black and white. It doesn't look as bad as like the Dead movies we've just been talking about, not Return of the Living Dead, but the other ones. Mm-hmm. At least it looks, it's like it's filmed in digital. It must have been, if it's because it looks that low budget. Like the costumes are really good. And like, I like the sets and the paper. Like you get a few close-ups where it's like, that's just paper. They've, done some stuff to make it look old, but it's not terrible. Like it doesn't look like they went to like, party supplies and got some stuff or anything. It looks good enough for me. I'm sure somebody who's a historian or a scholar on that era could be like, yeah, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. Whatever. It's a movie. It's fantasy. Here we are. So like, I liked a lot of that. And I liked the music choices. Like there'd be these interesting cues where I think our man is screaming and then suddenly he comes out and then like and then there's a moment where he's like walking and then they start running with him. And like, he's, I think there's like a kind of an upbeat sort of cheery sort of that era, maybe like musical cue, or at least it there's like this kind of upbeat thing going on. It's like an interesting juxtaposition. Like here's this madness and here's this like tune that's supposed to make you happy, but now you're going to associate with madness. So like there's a lot of interesting choices like that I liked, and the fact that they walk on this side of a hedge and then on to the other side at the end. Like there's neat little like mise en scène. So it's a really well crafted, put together film. I'm focusing on the stuff that I don't understand because it's also just a bewildering film to me. But like I enjoyed a lot of that stuff, as does Luna.
Luna's favorite film. I mean, Luna would love A Field in England, right?
Probably. But I do want to draw attention to something, and this is a part of like, this is why this film was really enjoyable, but also there are moments I had where I was just like, oh, I suddenly would lose me. So they have what I assume was one giant wind machine.
Yeah.
Because your character and the grass right around him would be blowing, just like so much wind. And just 2 feet behind them, the grass is very still. The trees aren't moving. Maybe that's intentional. I'm going to guess it isn't.
That makes me think of Halloween, though, where infamously they had like, it's supposed to be Illinois. It's shot
Right.
in, I think, Northern California. No, it's shot in Southern California. Anyway, California for sure. So they just keep dumping this bag of leaves. So you'll see like a yard covered in leaves. But then if you look further down the street, there are no leaves.
No leaves, yeah. It's the same thing. It's just like, it was,
Or
there was
rain machines, when you notice rain machines where it's like not raining past a certain point.
like there's a section where there's 2 characters lying in the grass and there's just like wind blowing them and just like nothing is moving in the background. And I'm just like, you know, I get it. And it doesn't ruin a film or anything, but it does take me out of the film for a second where I'm like, hee, that's funny.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Anyways, this was an enjoyable film. And it was weird looking up the director and being like, oh, he made that film Free Fire. That's like some action comedy that I've wanted to watch. And that film Rebecca that came out like a couple weeks ago, I think, or is coming out. I don't even know.
Yeah, I know. You mentioned that and I don't know anything about it. So
yeah,
it's a unique film. If you like unique and interesting films, I recommend it. It's, you know, it's not like stereotypically enjoyable, but if you like things like The Lighthouse, I think you should try A Field.
This is the same vein of film.
Yeah. Or The Witch, you know, it has overlap with The Witch because
it does have Over the Witch, yeah.
It's less narrative for sure, but it's that. See, again, I'm going back to like it. Who knows what it was like to experience the past in the past, because you know, your whole frame of reference is different. But like, you know, what a bewildering, weird, you know, time and things to have to deal with.
And we did get to see penis in it, which I appreciated. We
got
to see man penis, male penis. I don't know, born male penis, and it was also not circumcised, which if you're going to see penis, sometimes it's usually circumcised for whatever reason. I think that was more of a thing in America than other places, maybe. But anyways, I always appreciate, you know, I appreciate there's like a fear around saying the male, you know, male genitalia, but anyways,
I think back to what I was saying. Excuse me,
sorry.
Just that I think there's a very small genre that could be called The Past Was Horrible, and A Field in England, and The Witch, and The Lighthouse, and parts of The Revenant. You know, like. They also fit into other genres, most of those films, but like also The Past Was Horrible.
Yeah, November.
Yeah.